So, welcome everyone again to this session on mail merge with Google. Now, the tool that we're going to be looking at to do this is with something called YAMM, and as we've mentioned, no, not a fruit, not a vegetable, but it stands for yet another mail merge. Just to give you an overview of how the session is going to be split, I'm going to kick off with the basic overview of how you use YAMM. So this is the entire process for getting your first mail merge set up, and then I'll pass over to Phil to look at some more advanced features in the second half of the session. But just an overview of how YAMM works and what it actually is. It's essentially an extension that works in conjunction with Google Sheets and Gmail to create nice and easy mail merge campaigns from a data sheet. So the way it works is it will only work with Google Sheets and not Excel files. So I'm in my Google Drive here now, and you can see I've got two different file types here. I've got this Excel example, the .xlsx file, and I've got this Sheets example here with the two different icons. Now, if I come into my sheet version, YAMM lives at the top here in extensions. But something we see come through a lot is, oh, I'm trying to do this mail merge campaign, I can't see the extension anywhere. That is probably because you are in an Excel file. Okay, so the first thing you'll need to do before doing a mail merge campaign is convert this a CSV file or an Excel file to a Google Sheets. We can do that directly from within the file by just going to File and Save as Google Sheets. That'll save you a brand new copy of that Excel file, but in the Google Sheets format that we need to start our mail merge campaign. Okay, so the basic overview of how you use YAMM is you have a data sheet, and you have in your Gmail inbox a draft email containing tags, containing all the content that you want to run as part of this mail merge campaign. And we run the extension, and it reads from the data sheet, and then it grabs the draft that you want to grab, and then it creates this lovely mail merge. So the first thing we need is a data sheet, and the most important thing when we're setting up this data sheet is having a very clear header row. We need fields here, and we need to pay attention to what we're putting in this header row in terms of case sensitivity and words, because this is going to be really important when we come to create a customized email. And you probably want to create a customized email, don't you? Because that's kind of part of the whole thing with the mail merge. You want it to reach people with some personalized information in, or some personalized times in. So here's my Blue Peter example of a data sheet I made earlier, and I've got a nice clear header row with titles. I've got some names in. I've got some emails in, and this is obviously incredibly important because we need some emails for it to email people to. And I've got some other information I can use in there, such as my college and my appointment time. Okay, so again, it doesn't necessarily matter what you call these header rows, but it does matter that you pay attention to what you've called them, and that when we're creating our email draft, that we are referring back to this header row. So I've got my data sheet. I now need to create a draft email. So to do that in Gmail, just hit Compose, write something, and just hit X, and you'll see it will bounce to my draft files here. And again, another Blue Peter example here is where I've created this email draft. One kind of tip here at this point is whenever you're doing a mail merge campaign with YAMM, it's best to star the drafts or just the single draft that you're using as part of this mail merge campaign, because it's going to make it much easier to find later. I'll come back to that when we actually set up our real mail merge. But here is my example email, my draft example email. Dear name, this is a reminder that your appointment time tomorrow is scheduled at appointment time. Kind regards, John Downey. Now, what are these all about, these curly brackets here? These are called braces. We need a pair of braces here to begin personalizing our email. And what I'm putting in these braces corresponds to what I've got in my sheet header row. Now, this is where I need to be really careful with my case and exactly the exact wording of what I put in these header rows. So if I put in name in my mail merge here as just name like that, it's not going to know. And then 1,000 people are going to get dear bracket name bracket, which isn't too good. So I'd always advise when you're setting up this draft email for the first time, actually go in and just copy and paste the exact title you've got there. Because even I've made that mistake before when demoing. I've accidentally left the capital T off a time here when I need the full appointment time field in this bracket here. Okay, so we've got a pair of curly braces there, and that is helping personalize our email. So I can do fancy things in here, I can add links, and I can do all sorts of other things, but let's just start with something really basic. Let's close this email draft. And let's get our first mail merge set up. I want to send that email draft out to the people on my data sheet, to Phil, to me, to the other two Phils and his test accounts there. So let's do that now. We need to go to extensions, yet another mail merge for Gmail, and we won't worry about any of the other settings down here just yet. We're just going to go to start mail merge. Okay, now this is a bit, as Phil said, fingers crossed, it's not going to take too long to load. If your data sheet is massive, it may take a bit longer. I'm looking okay at the moment here, but bear with, if something crashes, there we go, happy days, it hasn't, it's all good. Right, so I'm at the point where I can start this mail merge. So this is telling me here I can still email 1,500 recipients from this add-on. Emails will be sent to recipients in column C. Now, don't worry about this 1,500 for the moment. I'm going to come and talk about quotas after we've done our first mail merge and explain some of the limitations there. Here I can set my sender name, but I can also double check that emails are being sent from the right column. I can see these being sent from column C, and they are. If in my data sheet I had multiple columns that had different email addresses in, this is where I need to pay attention and perhaps change that column there to make sure I'm emailing the right people. So pay attention to that bit first and foremost, that's the most important. My sender name I can change, yes. My email template, this is where I say that it's best to star it in your drafts folder, because you can see here, starred drafts will appear first. I've got my YAMM example draft here, but I might have that email I was writing to Phil saved in my drafts, and I don't want to mix up the two and accidentally email 1,000 people, seeing if Phil wants to go grab a coffee. So my next option here is tracking. Now, YAMM doesn't have like a sophisticated tracking system in terms of being able to see individual links that are clicked. So if you have 6 links in an email, it's not going to tell you which of those ones have been clicked, but it will give you an idea of when a link has been clicked. You can turn this on or off. It's a wholesale thing. You either track emails opened, clicked or bounced, or you don't. Okay, so we want to see if we're doing tracking or not, or do we just want to send something out there? Most of the time you're going to want some sense of tracking, aren't you? So let's keep that on. Don't worry about this control for now. Phil's going to go through that in his section. But the next option we've got is to send a test email. That'll send a test email to my own account, the account that you're creating this mail merge through. You can just double check that you're happy with everything there, make sure it looks good. Schedule is very useful. This is where we can schedule mail merge campaigns up to 7 days in advance. So you can stagger out your campaigns to kind of spread them across a week if you want to. And then all importantly, we've got the send button here. So let's hit that straight away and let's get this email mail merge campaign started. Now, this is going to run just in this tab, so I can bounce between other tabs if I want. It's just going to run in the background. It may take a minute to get through all the emails. If you are emailing, let's say, I don't know, like 1,000 people, then again, this could take a little bit longer. Usually it doesn't take this long. It's just taking a little bit of time to think about getting started, but there we go. It's kicking off now. And it will have sent 4 emails to those addresses I've got there. You'll have noticed that it's created a new column for me here with the status of these emails. Now, if Phil were to open one of those emails, you can see it's already changed here and it's just changed there. It's updating that tracking in real time as emails are being opened, and it'll update the status here when they've been bounced or anything like that, or they've failed to send. We can see what's going on with those emails there. And it's also bounced me up at the right-hand side, this nice simple tracking report here, so I can see what's going on, which one's been delivered, which one's been opened. If I had links in there, I could see when things have been clicked, I can see when things have been responded, and I can see when people have unsubscribed. We'll go into how to set an unsubscription link in your email in Phil's section, but again, this is important so we can see how many people are saying, stop spamming me, just let me unsubscribe from this mailing list, please. So there we go, we've got a nice simple tracking report there. I can get back to that anytime by going back to, again, extensions, yet another mail merge and open tracking report. And this will open this tracking report here. An important disclaimer about this tracking report is that there's a limit of, it will track up to 10 days if it's left unopened. So what I mean by that is you need to go and run the report or open, you don't have to create a new mail merge, but you have to go and access the report every 10 days if you want it to keep tracking new data beyond those 10 days. So let's say I wanted to do a mail merge campaign and a month later, I wanted to track how it's done a month later. I would then need to make sure that every 10 days I'm going in and just opening, just checking that tracking report to make sure that it continues to collect new data. The other side of that can be quite useful is that if you want a set metric to measure your mail merge campaigns out against, if you don't go back into that tracking report and just let it track for 10 days each time, and perhaps going through the YAMM dashboard, which I'll come onto in a second, you've got then a set metric that you can check all your campaigns against. You're measuring them all against 10-day tracking periods. Options I've got here from the tracking report as well are follow-up. So this is where, if I was really unsatisfied with how well my mail merge campaign has gone, I could do a follow-up campaign. Now this is a powerful tool, so we need to be clear that you shouldn't really use this to spam people. If people haven't opened it, maybe your mail merge campaign was just a bit pants, sorry, but maybe you just need to make it a bit more engaging. But maybe it is necessary to follow up because it's something time sensitive. It's something in terms of a high importance email campaign for a department or something like that, and you have to do a follow-up report, or you're using the same data sheet every time but changing the draft or something like that. So here we go, we can follow up the report and we can choose who we want to target. Are we going to do everyone, which is quite spammy, or just the people who have not opened or the people who haven't responded? And then we can choose whether we do the follow campaign in a new sheet or in the same sheet, and whether we follow up on the same email threads or put it in new threads. And when we do follow up here, this is where it will give us a new sheet with the new status of that report. I'm not going to run this now because I don't want to spam fill any further, but just so you know, you have got that follow up campaign option here. Right, let's talk about the YAMM dashboard then. I mentioned it there. So we've got this extension here, but we've also got the YAMM dashboard. Now this isn't super feature rich, but it's basically YAMM's own website. You just search YAMM dashboard or go to yamm.com. You land on a page like this, and it's going to try and prompt you to pay for it. Of course, we don't have to pay for it because we're at the university. We're all good. We've got it. We just need to go to sign in to get to your own YAMM dashboard. Now, some useful things we can do in here. In the sent column here, I can see all the campaigns I've sent. I can access my reports, see when people have clicked on things, look at detailed results, poll results. Phil will talk about polls. I can open it up in a sheet. I can see who's subscribed. So it's another way in to see all those mail merges. So if you're using this tool frequently, you're probably going to want to make use of the YAMM dashboard to just check your metrics, check your statistics and your reports. Also very important for this is where you will cancel your scheduled mail merges. So I said you can schedule them up to 7 days in advance. And again, another Blue Peter example. Here is a mail merge test that I did the other day that I scheduled for tomorrow, and I've changed my mind. I want to unschedule this. I want to get rid of it. So I can again just click it and cancel that mail merge to avoid spamming Phil's various accounts. So that is where we would cancel our scheduled mail merges. Again, we can manage unsubscriptions here. And another cool thing we can do is grab some really nice simple templates to use in conjunction with YAMM. You hit use and it'll bounce you a nice template that you can then edit in your Gmail inbox. The positive things about these is you might think they look a bit basic, but through some testing, I've found that these are really good in that they don't seem to go to spam like ever. I've tried various third-party add-ons just through testing and things like that people shouldn't really be using, and they just seem to go to spam every time when I use those in conjunction. So nice and simple email templates here that you could use in conjunction with your mail merge campaigns. And again, we've got the team report here, so we can see what teams are using it. This often takes a minute to load, so I'm not going to sit here and wait for it to do so. But this is where you can see a breakdown of teams using YAMM. You can see your own statistics as well and see who are the most frequent YAMMers in the university. could be useful. I mentioned that we have this limit that we had 1500. If you notice when I went to start that campaign, might freak out a bit here, but when we go to start the campaign, it gives us that warning that 1500 emails can be sent from this campaign. So let's do start new campaign and see if we can bring up that warning. Give it a second. You see, it's just created a new sheet for me here. And that quota was initially 1500, but it should have dropped because of those 4 emails that I've done. There we go. It's 1,485. I must have sent this a few times or done something. I don't know why it's doubled up, but there we go. It shouldn't really do that. I don't know whether it's because the scheduled one or something, but yeah, each email will just count as 1 email. But your limit is your Gmail limit for every Google account, every Gmail account is 2,000 emails can be sent a day from one inbox. Now for multi-send emails like this, that limit is 1,500 that can be sent in a 24-hour period. The reason for that is that it just allows you some extra allowance. So you've got 500 emails left over in your inbox, and we can leave some quota when we go to schedule something. We can leave some quota left if we think we're going to be using more emails that day. So bear in mind that the limit that you can send from this is 1,500. But and sorry, this is what the warning will look like. You'll get this warning here. You don't have enough quota to send all emails now, but YAMM can automatically send remaining emails later. So it's going to do the work for you there, and it's going to sort of stagger those emails out. But there's a couple of ways around this that we can advise. One is, of course, just scheduling your campaigns, being tactical around it so that you're scheduling out your campaigns so that you're not using more than that 1,500 limit per day, and that you're aware of that in conjunction with any other mail merge campaigns you've got going on. Another is to potentially use a non-personal account that you can request from IT, so you have a specified account that you would use for mail merge campaigns. Or a really good one is to make use of Google Groups. When you create a Google group, you can add loads of people to it, and then there's an email address that corresponds to that group. So we have this group, and we've got an email address where if you email that, it will ping out to everyone in that Google group. Now, if you add that to a mail merge campaign, that only counts as 1 email, but it still goes to everyone in the group. So in theory, if you're using Google Groups in conjunction with this, then you're effectively limitless in the amount of emails that you can send through this tool. And again, it's just free, it's easy to use, and we like it. It uses Google, we like Google things, so yeah, give it a go. But that is how you would set up your first mail merge campaign using YAMM. Right, I'm going to pass over to Phil now to look at some more advanced features you can use with these mail merge campaigns.
Okay, I've decided I'm not going to jump straight into my Google Sheet first. I'm going to cover what we're going to refer to as email aliases or delegated accounts, which is the biggie that we get asked with about YAMM. So John mentioned non-personal accounts, or NPAs as the acronym is, and they're used across the university when we want a front-facing email address that doesn't want to belong to an individual. So you might have, undergraduate-students@york.ac.uk, for instance. That email address then sits on a web page somewhere or on a form. People, students, email it, and inevitably the email inbox goes to several people in a department who are managing it and have what's called delegated access. So the account is owned by one individual, but they are provided with delegated access to be able to read the emails only. And it typically looks like a drop down at the top right of your email screen and appears as another entry in there so you can jump into that mailbox. So that's the grounding for what I'm establishing here. Inevitably, then, the request comes from one of those individuals in the team to say, well, I need to be able to send an email, but I don't want it to come from me as an individual. I want it to come from this alias or this mailbox. That is possible. There's just a hoop to jump through, and I'm going to show you that hoop. And as John has already said, YAMM themselves also have a really nice web page and a video on this. So you can either refer to our video or the one on YAMM's. But this is what it looks like then. I am in a test account, and I am in this is the account I want to send the email from. So this would be your personal York account. And I'm going to request being able to send emails on behalf of another account, which is Ned Flanders, which you'll see shortly. So me as an individual, I'm going to go to settings at the very top right, and I'm going to go to see all settings. Using the tabs along the top here, I'm going to go to the tab that says accounts. Now, the option I'm looking for here is send mail as. For those of us who have never been in here before, never tinkered with it, you will only have one entry in here, and that will be your name. If you've been in here in the past and dabbled, you will likely have another entry, as you'll see in a moment, that lets you send emails on behalf of another account. But let's go through setting this up then with the Ned Flanders account that I've got. So I'm going to click add another email address. And I get this dialog box up here. Now I know that the other account is Ned Flanders, because it's just a test account. That's the autocomplete coming up here as part of the Blue Peter moment that I've got prepared earlier. So I pop a name in there that I want. It can technically be any name that you want if it refers to you, but it is the name that will appear on the email when it is sent. And then the email address itself. So for me, this is CSRV857 because this is just a test account for an alias. So I'm just going to select it, but you would type it in there if it doesn't appear. But this is the other email account that you want to be sending emails as. So this would be that undergraduate-students@york.ac.uk, for instance. Ensure the tick box, which is ticked by default, is ticked and it's treated as an alias. And basically, I'm going to skip to next step here. Now, what it does is it sends a confirmation email to that other email address to verify this request. Because lo and behold, you can't just start typing, you can't just start sending emails on behalf of anybody at the university without their permission. Otherwise, I'd have a lot of fun with John's email account. So you do this coordinated, basically. And what I'm going to do there is say send verification. That now says to me, a confirmation link was sent to that email account. So if you own that other email account, then you would now log into it and click the email, which I'll show you in a moment. If you don't own the account and can't log in, you speak to the person that can and does. So let me just flick to that other account. And here's the email that comes through. It looks dreadful, absolutely dreadful, but obviously you're going to communicate with the person so they know what to expect. There's a request to say that the email address 857 wants to be given permissions to be able to be sent from by 860. I'm aware this looks really random when we're talking about numbers. For you, obviously, it'll be your names. What the individual has to do is click this long URL here. So if they click it, I get a confirmation message as the last resort here to say, am I definitely happy with this? And I select confirm. That is it. That's verification for that specific individual. So let me minimize this again. Now, back on this screen here, I can see the entry, but I can see it's unverified still. That's very simply because we're doing this quickly. So I'm going to refresh just by using the reload button at the top. And there, it has now, the unverified thing has gone. So this now will allow me to send emails either as myself, my 860 account, or as Ned Flanders 857. What does that look like in Gmail? Well, if you go to the Compose button at the top left, you will now, for the first time, have a From field available. And if you click the drop down, you can choose who the email appears to come from. Okay, now we've got that set up. Let's see what that looks like in YAMM. So this is just an example sheet that mimics what John had earlier, but I'm going to show you the box now in YAMM where that will be applicable. So under this option here, aliases, filters, and personalized attachments, the top option here is send from. That now has two options, whereas before it only had the one in there. So I can select that second account to do my mail merge as John's just shown you with. Right. These options down here on the left-hand side now, I'm going to flick through telling you what they are, and then I'm going to jump out of YAMM and show you. So rather than go back and forth, sheet filter. The good news is all of these options have a setup link, which takes you to a really great YAMM page that tells you how to use it with screenshots, videos, etc. as well. Sheet filter lets you have a sheet of data where you might have a specific column, such as send email or reply, and it's got yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes, no's, etc. And you only want to send it to specific rows that meet some criteria. This option will become available when the sheet that you're in uses filtering. And I'm going to show you this in a moment, so you'll know what I mean. Reply to address. By default, the account that you're sending the mail merge from is the address that when somebody hits reply in an email, it will go back to. But you could redirect that, for instance. So I could send emails from my personal Gmail account, but I could set the reply address to a Google group, a management-students group, for instance. As long as there's permission for people to email that group, then you can put a different reply to address in there. You could also just do a kind of no reply at york.ac.uk just to prevent anything coming back if it's only supposed to be one-way communication. Personalized attachments. Again, I'm going to show this one, but it's the ability to link a different attachment in a Google Drive, specifically into an email per row for individuals. So you can say, hey, John, here's your attachment file. Hey, Ned, here's yours, etc. And I'll show you that one as well in a moment. Unsubscribe link. As mentioned, we're not going to get into the political stuff as to when you should or shouldn't be using it. Unsubscribe. If you're sending something like a newsletter and just something kind of optional information, then there should be a strong reason you should have an unsubscribe link for people to remove themselves from. I'm just going to show you how to add that easily. And then YAMM polls, which is quite exciting. And it's a way to do a very quick amount of polling in an email where people just click a word and you can capture the results. So let me go through each of those now so that they make a little bit more sense. Sheet filtering. So here's a Google Sheet with some data in, and I've got a reply column that I'm going to use as to send. I only want to send a YAMM mail merge to those who've responded with a yes. So I'm going to highlight my data. I'm going to go to the three dots up here, and I'm going to go to the Create a Filter button. That's now put what might be hard to see, but it's a little green line around the data. And it allows me to now untick no, leave yes ticked, and select OK. So it's filtering the data. I'm not having to copy and paste all the individual yeses. I'm not having to create a formula. I'm not having to do anything complicated, but I can filter the data that now when I go back into that YAMM window, the sheet filter option will be enabled, and it will specifically allow me to target only the yeses, so that when I do the mail merge, only those with a yes get an email, and it leaves everybody else alone. Okay. Personalized attachments. Here's that same sheet of data with an attachment column here colored in yellow, so it's easy to see. And what I've got is a Google Drive folder where I want to give each individual an attachment as part of their email. So here's what I can do. I can right-click my attachment. I can go to Share. I can go to Copy Link. I can go to my attachment, and I can paste it in. I can go to my Google Drive. I can right-click, Share, Copy Link, go to my Google Sheet, Attachment. Obviously, I'm being careful that I'm matching up the correct attachments with the correct individuals. Now, the disclaimer here, you have to do the sharing in Google Drive manually yourself. So if I right-click and go to Share, at the moment, I've got this very simply so that anyone at the university who has the link can access that file. And obviously, the mail merge means that John will get a specific link to that file. But if we're talking about student data here and something sensitive, that is not acceptable. Because if you sent the email to the wrong person, they would get a link to that file. And because anyone with a link can open it, they'd be able to get access to it. So if you're dealing with something sensitive in terms of data, you will need to share the file with the individual specifically. YAMM will not do that for you. So that was really exciting. You're like, oh, that's great, Phil. You've only got 3 rows there. You just copied and pasted a couple of times. But come on, man, I've got 150 students to deal with here. That's crazy. Well, there's a different way of doing this then. I'm going to delete those entries there. And I'm going to change the title of my column from ID to attachment. I don't technically have to do that, but the YAMM support article shows me to do it like that. And we want you to be able to go away and be able to recreate what we've done and it align with YAMM. So what I'm going to do in here instead is I'm going to enter a unique code. Because what you may or may not have spotted when I had my Google Drive folder here was I actually named it with a unique value, basically, so that YAMM will have a way of saying which particular file relates to which individual. So 001, 002. It doesn't have to be 3 digits long, which gives me sort of a combination of about 1,000 if I include 3 zeros, but I've just done it for this example here. So I still know myself manually that Phil wants 001 and John wants 002, but now I can just kind of drag that down and let an autocomplete kick in to be able to do that. Now I am going to open up YAMM back here, because then you need to know what happens next. Well, what happens next is I'm going to tell YAMM where the folder is in Google Drive itself that contains all of the files so that it can match my ID that I've entered with the specific file that it needs. So I'm going to go import from Drive folder, and I'm going to find my folder, if I can remember what it's called. There we go, YAMM Bitesize, and that's my YAMM Bitesize attachments. The trick here, don't click into the folder, because if you do, it appears invisible. This is a special Google folder picker, not a file picker. So it looks like it's empty when it's not. So just click the folder once to highlight it, and then click select. Now it asks me which column contains my identifier, which I'm calling ID in here. And I'm going to select import files. It's now going to go through that folder and automatically, if I just close this, drag in what I was doing manually about 2 minutes ago. So it pulls the attachment name so I can verify that that's the right document. And then it's basically grabbed all of those attachment links in there for me. As I say, that's the option, the way to do it if you're doing it on scale, basically. Okay, adding an unsubscribe link now. So let me jump back into my Gmail inbox and go to my drafts. And here is my sample newsletter. What I want in it, because it's an optional newsletter that people subscribe to, they have the right to be able to unsubscribe if they no longer want it. So I need to create a link in here that lets them do so. Now, YAMM itself has a web page on exactly what to put in to the email so people can unsubscribe. And it's literally that link there. So I'm going to copy that with my mouse. I'm going to go back to my email. And obviously, because of accessibility purposes, we want the bit of text to be descriptive. So imagine a screen reader comes along and needs to know what the hyperlink is here. So my text is click here if you wish to unsubscribe. I'm going to select the insert link button. I'm going to paste in like so and click OK. And that's ready to go for my mail merge, basically. What does that look like in practice when it's happened? Well, it looks a little bit like this. So I have 2 people who have specifically unsubscribed from the email that was sent. YAMM's colored those in, and I've got 2 emails that were sent where somebody hasn't opened it yet. So that means in future, when you're sending your mail shot, you need to respect the fact that those people no longer want that optional email. And so you need to be excluding them. Polls then, this last little bit for polls. I have got another draft here called polls. And what I want to do is send this out to people and ask a really quick question. Do you know who the disc team are? And I want to give them 3 options. Legends, yes, no. So I've already created a hyperlink for this one here. And obviously I'm going to show you how to create one for the next word as well. That's all it's going to be. The end user here is basically going to click on that word as their response, and that's it. That's the recording of their option. So again, YAMM has a really nice page on how to do this. And what the URL looks like this time is there's some default stuff here, app.yam response equals, and then in green, there's the exact response that you want to have written. There's even a table down here that gives you an example for yes, no, maybe, and how to make use of it. So I'm going to copy, let's copy the yes one. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to my email. I'm going to highlight my word, create my link, paste it in. Obviously, at this point here, if yes doesn't match what you were wanting and there's a different response, then you can type something else in. But if I select OK, that now becomes a hyperlink word. And I'll just finish. I'll do the same with nope. And then that's my email ready to go as part of the mail merge as well. What does that look like? It looks like this. You get a heading with YAMM Poll at the top. I've colored it in yellow just so it's easier for you to see in this demo, but you get an entry per person there. So I can see I've had an entry from myself and John, not heard of them, has heard of them. And it's as simple as that. It's a click of a button. This isn't really going to work for people who are thinking, let's send this out for when people want to meet and use loads of meeting dates, which I know is a L1 people do quite commonly. But if it's a quick opinion about something else and you're not using Slack, for instance, then it's really worth having a go with.